The Perseus Expanse had a reputation no one argued with. Charts marked it as unstable, unpredictable, and largely useless. Entire fleets had avoided it for centuries, not because it lacked value, but because it refused to behave. Gravity shifted without warning. Signals bent and echoed. Ancient debris fields drifted like ghosts of forgotten civilizations. It was the kind of place where control slipped through even the most disciplined fingers. Humans moved in anyway. That alone was enough to unsettle the Galactic Council. Inside the vast chamber orbiting a neutral star, High Executor Vakal stood before a ring of silent observers. The Council species watched through shifting holographic forms, each projecting authority in its own way. Vakal did not waste words. Human expansion has exceeded predicted thresholds, he stated, voice even, precise. They establish footholds in unstable regions and adapt faster than projected models allow. A ripple of quiet acknowledgement passed through the chamber. They are inefficient, one counselor replied. Disorganized. Their command lacks uniformity. Correct, Vakal said. And that is the variable. He gestured, and a projection of the Perseus Expanse appeared, highlighted zones of human activity flickering across chaotic star maps. They do not impose order. They exploit disorder. Another counselor leaned forward. You are suggesting escalation? I am suggesting containment, Vakal answered. If left unchecked, their methods will destabilize controlled sectors. Silence followed. Not doubt, calculation. Approved, came the final response. Deploy enforcement fleet. Limit their expansion. Vakal inclined his head. Decision made. Outcome, in their view, inevitable. Far from the chamber, deep within the expanse, the Terran flagship TSV Resolute drifted against a fractured starfield. Its hull bore the quiet scars of past conflicts, repaired but never erased. Inside, the atmosphere was steady, almost routine. Admiral Elias Rourke stood at the observation deck, hands clasped behind his back. The stars beyond warped slightly as distant gravitational currents shifted. To an untrained eye, it looked like distortion. To Rourke, it looked like terrain. A junior officer approached, tablet in hand. Long-range sensors confirm Council fleet movement. Estimated arrival within 16 hours. Rourke didn't turn. On schedule. The officer hesitated. Sir, they're not hiding it. They don't need to, Rourke replied. They think this ends quickly. A faint smile touched his expression, not amusement, but recognition. Behind him, Commander Hale stepped forward. Fleet positions are holding, but some captains are asking for clarification. Formation looks loose. Good, Rourke said. Tell them to keep it that way. Hale crossed his arms. You're sure about this? Rourke finally turned, meeting his gaze. If they can predict us, we've already lost. There was no tension in his voice, only certainty. Orders moved quietly across the fleet. Ships adjusted slightly, drifting into positions that made little sense at first glance. Some edged closer to asteroid clusters. Others lingered in open space, exposed. Gaps formed where none should exist. It wasn't chaos, but it looked close enough. Across the expanse, alien reconnaissance units observed everything. Human fleet lacks cohesion, one analyst reported. Irregular spacing. No defensive symmetry. Expected, another replied. Their doctrine favors improvisation. It fails under pressure. Data streamed back to the approaching Council fleet. Clean. Predictable. Reassuring. At the center of it, Vakal studied the reports. Signal variance? Minimal, an officer responded. Within acceptable margins. Vakal paused. Something about the distribution felt intentional. Not flawed. Designed. But the conclusion didn't align with established models. Proceed, he ordered. The Council fleet entered the expanse like a blade. Tight formation, flawless alignment, every ship positioned for maximum efficiency. Their presence alone distorted the surrounding space, a controlled force pushing into chaos. On the Resolute, the shift was immediate. Subtle, but undeniable. They're here, Hales said quietly. Rourke nodded. Hold position. No preemptive strike? No. Silence settled over the bridge. Not fear, focus. A younger crew member glanced at the tactical display. Sir, they're lining up for a full spectrum opening strike. Rourke stepped forward, eyes fixed on the incoming formation. Let them. The words hung in the air, heavier than any command. Across the void, energy signatures began to rise. The Council fleet prepared its first move, precise, overwhelming, decisive. From their perspective, the battle had already been won. From Rourke's, it hadn't even started. He exhaled slowly, then spoke, voice calm and steady. Mark their advance vectors. And wait. No urgency. No hesitation. Around him, the crew moved with quiet confidence. Systems aligned. Timers ticked down. Every ship, every signal, every gap in their formation sat exactly where it needed to be. To the Council, the human fleet looked exposed. To Rourke, it looked ready. And as the first wave of alien fire ignited the darkness, one truth remained unspoken, but certain. Nothing in the expanse was ever what it seemed. The first volley arrived without warning, only a sudden bloom of light tearing across the dark. Beams of concentrated energy lanced through the expanse, striking the scattered human fleet with surgical precision. Explosions flared in rapid succession, silent at first, then carried as vibrations through hulls and systems. 3 ships vanished almost instantly, their signatures collapsing into drifting debris. On the Resolute, the bridge lights dimmed as shockwaves rippled across nearby space. Impact confirmed, a tactical officer called out. Multiple losses. Rourke didn't flinch. Maintain course. Outside, human ships reacted as if struck by panic. Formations dissolved further. Some vessels veered hard, breaking away from engagement zones. Others accelerated blindly, scattering in every direction. A few spun off trajectory, their movement erratic, almost uncontrolled. To the Council fleet, it looked exactly as expected. Enemy cohesion collapsing. An alien commander reported. Retreat patterns inconsistent. Press the advantage, another replied. Expand firing arcs. A second wave followed, more precise, more aggressive. This time, the targeting systems locked onto fleeing ships. Another human cruiser ruptured under sustained fire, its hull splitting before fading into a cloud of fragments. Back on the Resolute, alarms flickered but never escalated into chaos. Commander Hale leaned over the console. Losses are within projected range. Rourke nodded once. Good. Keep them committed. A younger officer glanced up, tension tightening his voice. Sir, we're not returning fire. We will, Rourke said. Not yet. Across the fleet, communication channels filled with clipped exchanges, controlled, measured, far from the panic their movements suggested. Vector shift complete. Decoy signatures active. Signal drift holding. Each report aligned with a pattern invisible to the enemy. Meanwhile, alien sensors painted a simple picture: human forces breaking under pressure. Confirmed destruction of target group 6, an analyst stated. Confirmed, came the response. No residual activity. But there was residual activity, just not in any form their systems recognized. Fragments drifting from destroyed ships carried embedded transmitters, continuing to emit false signals. Ghost signatures lingered where vessels had once been, confusing targeting arrays. Sensor returns overlapped, distorting the battlefield into something less certain. Vakal observed in silence. Executor, one of his officers said. Enemy resistance is negligible. Recommend advancing to full suppression. Vakal's gaze remained fixed on the data stream. Their retreat lacks randomness. The officer hesitated. Clarify. They are not fleeing blindly, Vakal said. Their vectors intersect, intentionally. A brief pause followed. Coincidence? Another officer offered. Their command structure cannot sustain coordinated withdrawal under this level of force. Vakal said nothing. The explanation fit established logic. But something didn't. On the human side, the illusion deepened. Ships continued to fall back, drawing the Council fleet forward. Each movement appeared reactive, desperate. In reality, distances tightened in precise increments. Angles shifted just enough to guide pursuit without revealing intent. Phase 2 positions nearly set, Hale reported quietly. Rourke stepped closer to the main display. Status on outer grid? Standing by. Cloak integrity holding. Good. He glanced at the incoming formation, now stretching slightly as it advanced. They're taking the bait, Hale said. They think it's theirs, Rourke replied. Another blast struck near the Resolute, the shockwave rattling the deck. For a moment, the illusion blurred. Danger felt real because it was. Close one, the young officer muttered. Rourke didn't look away from the display. Stay focused. Across the battlefield, the Council fleet pushed deeper. Their formation, once tight and flawless, began to extend. Faster ships moved ahead, eager to finish the engagement. Heavier vessels lagged behind, maintaining fire support. Gaps formed, small at first, then widening. Executor, an analyst said. Fleet spacing increasing beyond optimal parameters. Maintain advance, another commander replied before Vekal could speak. Enemy collapse imminent. Vekal's attention sharpened. Reevaluate. But the order came too late. Momentum had taken hold. Human ships continued to fall back, slipping between asteroid clusters and gravitational distortions. The environment, once a nuisance, now interfered with alien sensor clarity. Target locks flickered. Signal lag increased. Tracking instability rising, an officer reported. Interference from local anomalies. Compensate, came the immediate response. They tried. But the expanse wasn't something you compensated for. It shifted, bent, and swallowed certainty whole. On the Resolute, Rourke watched the same distortions with quiet approval. Timing? He asked. Almost, Hale said. All units nearing final positions. Rourke exhaled slowly, steady. Let them come a little closer. Outside, another human ship took a direct hit, erupting into light before dissolving into fragments. The image fed directly into alien sensors, clear proof of victory, reinforcing their advance. Behind that debris field, unseen and silent, something else moved into place. Vekal leaned forward slightly, studying the evolving pattern. The retreat still didn't feel right. Not chaotic enough. Not broken enough. Signal density, he murmured. Within acceptable variance, an officer replied. No, Vekal said softly. It's layered. Confusion flickered across the command deck. Before anyone could respond, a new report cut through the noise. Executor, multiple contacts emerging from peripheral zones. The display shifted. For the first time, the battlefield changed. Rourke's voice broke the silence aboard the Resolute, calm and deliberate. Hold steady. Every system aligned. Every ship locked into position. The illusion had done its job. And now, the real battle was about to begin. For a heartbeat, everything held. Then the battlefield rewrote itself. The scattered human ships stopped drifting. Their erratic vectors snapped into alignment so sharply it felt unnatural, like chaos folding into order mid-breath. Engines flared in unison. Signals stabilized. What had looked like panic resolved into precision. On the Resolute, Rourke didn't raise his voice. Execute. Across the expanse, hidden systems came alive. From behind dense asteroid belts, silhouettes emerged, sleek human warships sliding out of shadow as if the void itself had been holding them back. Cloaking fields disengaged in cascading waves, revealing entire squadrons that hadn't existed on alien sensors seconds earlier. At the same moment, electronic warfare ignited. Alien displays flickered. Target locks dissolved. Communication channels warped into static bursts and fragmented echoes. Signal disruption detected, an alien officer shouted. Multiple channels compromised. Reroute through secondary relays. Another ordered. Secondary relays are. The sentence cut off as the system glitched again. Vaykal's gaze hardened. Stabilize the network. But stability was already slipping. On the human side, the shift felt seamless. All units report green, Hale said. Grid is active. Good, Rourke replied. Start isolating their forward elements. Human ships surged forward, no longer retreating, but cutting across the alien formation at sharp angles. Instead of confronting the fleet as a whole, they struck its edges, fast, deliberate, surgical. A cluster of alien cruisers at the vanguard found themselves suddenly exposed. Their formation, stretched by pursuit, left them without immediate support. Targets designated, a human pilot reported. Engaging. Missiles launched in coordinated waves, threading through distorted space with adaptive guidance. Energy bursts followed, converging on a single point. Within seconds, the alien cruisers buckled under concentrated fire, their shields collapsing before their weapons could respond. On the Council command deck, confusion escalated. Forward units under heavy attack! Reinforce Sector 3! We can't, our targeting is unstable. Vaykal stepped closer to the central display, analyzing the shifting patterns. The realization came not as shock, but as clarity. They led us here, he said. Silence fell around him. The retreat, it was controlled. Every movement placed us deeper into this formation. An officer shook his head. Impossible. Their structure is different, Vaykal cut in. Not absent. Another wave of interference rippled through the fleet. Ships lost contact with each other. Coordinated firing patterns fractured into isolated attempts. Precision dissolved into hesitation. On the Resolute, the tempo increased. Enemy cohesion dropping, Hale reported. They're splitting. Push the advantage, Rourke said. Don't let them regroup. Human vessels pivoted again, shifting roles mid-engagement. Ships that had fired moments ago pulled back, replaced by fresh units striking from new angles. Movement flowed continuously, never static, never predictable. A young officer glanced at the display, awe slipping into his voice. They don't know where we are anymore. They know, Rourke said quietly. They just can't act on it. Another alien command vessel attempted to re-establish order, broadcasting directives across the disrupted network. Reform Central Line. All units converge. The transmission cut as a human strike pierced its defenses. The ship shuddered under impact, systems failing in rapid succession before it collapsed into drifting wreckage. That loss echoed across the alien fleet. They've taken Command Node 7. Fall back to defensive grid. Negative. Coordinates are corrupted. Panic, subtle but growing, replaced certainty. Vaykal observed it all, mind racing through collapsing probabilities. Their doctrine depended on structure, clear lines, stable communication, predictable engagement patterns. Without those, response time lagged. Decision-making fractured. The humans had targeted that weakness first. Executor, an officer said, voice strained. We need new directives. Vaykal didn't answer immediately. He was already calculating, adapting. Decentralize, he said at last. Independent unit command. Abandon formation. The order rippled outward, but too late to fully recover. Human forces had already segmented the battlefield. On the Resolute, Hale exhaled slowly. They're breaking formation. Rourke nodded. That's the moment. Phase 3? Begin. Across the expanse, another layer activated. Minefields, previously dormant, came alive along predicted escape vectors. Gravitational distortions were amplified through localized emitters, bending trajectories just enough to disrupt navigation. Alien ships attempting to reposition found themselves drifting off course, their movements subtly redirected into vulnerable zones. They're controlling the environment, Hale said. They're part of it now, Rourke replied. Another strike wave launched, this time deeper into the alien fleet's core. Without centralized coordination, responses came unevenly. Some ships fired too late. Others targeted empty space, misled by false signals. The imbalance widened. Vakal watched the unfolding collapse, understanding settling in with cold precision. This was never a battle, he said quietly. It was a construction. No one replied. Across the battlefield, human ships moved with increasing confidence. What had begun as deception now revealed its full intent: control, not chaos. On the Resolute, the young officer spoke again, softer this time. Sir, they're losing. Rourke's eyes remained fixed on the display. They lost the moment they believed this would be simple. Outside, the expanse swallowed the remnants of certainty, leaving only motion, adaptation, and the unmistakable shift of momentum. For the first time, the Council fleet was no longer advancing. It was surviving. The battle did not end, it tightened. What had once been a single advancing force fractured into isolated struggles scattered across the expanse. Pockets of alien ships fought independently, their once perfect coordination reduced to instinct and survival. Some adapted quickly, forming temporary clusters, firing back with disciplined bursts. Others hesitated, caught between conflicting signals and failing systems. Human ships did not slow. They moved through the broken formation with purpose, cutting clean paths between resistance points. No wasted motion, no unnecessary risk. Every strike carried intent. Sector 5 collapsing, Hale reported. Enemy attempting regroup near the outer drift. Rourke studied the display. The alien fleet still had strength, more than enough to prolong the fight if allowed to stabilize. We end it before they find their footing, he said. Hale glanced at him. You're thinking about the compression maneuver. Rourke didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the shifting field, tracking movement, predicting reactions. It was risky. It always had been. The expanse wasn't something you forced, it pushed back. They're already destabilized, Hale added. If we miscalculate. We won't, Rourke said. A brief pause followed, not disagreement, just understanding. Prepare the fleet, he continued. All units aligned to convergence points. Tight intervals. Orders spread fast. Human ships adjusted again, their movements subtle at first, then increasingly deliberate. Lines formed where none had existed, arcs tightening around the remaining alien clusters. Across the battlefield, the shift went unnoticed, until it didn't. Executor, an alien officer said, tension sharpening his tone. Enemy vectors are changing. They're closing distance on multiple fronts. Vakal leaned forward. The pattern revealed itself in seconds. They're compressing the field, he said. All units break outward. Increase separation. The command transmitted, but execution faltered. Navigation systems lagged. Environmental distortions interfered. Ships that attempted to pull back found their paths bending, nudged off course by unseen forces. They're manipulating gravity signatures, another officer reported. Our trajectories are being redirected. Compensate, Vakal ordered. We are trying. Trying wasn't enough. On the Resolute, the operation unfolded with precision. Convergence points holding, Hale said. Outer ring nearly sealed. Rourke nodded. Initiate phase lock. A low hum spread through the fleet as synchronized systems activated. Subtle distortions intensified, layering over the natural instability of the expanse. Space itself seemed to tighten, not visibly, but perceptibly, like pressure building before a storm breaks. Human ships surged forward. The outer arcs closed, forcing alien vessels inward. Escape routes narrowed, then vanished entirely. Every movement the alien fleet attempted led them deeper into overlapping fields of fire. They're boxed in, the young officer said, unable to hide the edge in his voice. Not yet, Rourke replied. Now they'll push back. And they did. Cornered forces fought hardest. Alien ships unleashed concentrated volleys, their weapons cutting through the converging lines with brutal efficiency. One human destroyer took a direct hit, its hull fracturing before it vanished into light. Ship down! Hale snapped. Rourke's jaw tightened, but his focus didn't shift. Maintain pressure. Another exchange followed, closer, harsher. The distance between fleets shrank to knife range. Every decision mattered. Every second carried weight. Then the balance tipped. A coordinated human strike cut through the center of the alien formation, splitting what remained into smaller, disconnected groups. Without space to maneuver, without clear communication, their resistance began to falter. On the Council command deck, silence replaced urgency. Vakal watched the collapse unfold, every variable aligning with a conclusion he could no longer ignore. "They adapted faster than we calculated," he said quietly. No one argued. Another impact shook the vessel. Systems flickered. Status reports came in slower now, fragmented. "Executor, we cannot sustain this engagement." Vakal closed his eyes for a brief moment, not in defeat, but in acknowledgement. "Signal withdrawal," he said. The order carried across the remaining fleet. Disengagement protocols activated. Ships broke away where they could, pushing outward through the narrowing field. Human forces did not pursue recklessly. They allowed the retreat, striking only when necessary, maintaining control until distance widened and contact thinned. Gradually, the battlefield emptied. What remained drifted in silence: debris, fading energy signatures, the remnants of a conflict that had turned long before it ended. On the Resolute, the tension eased, replaced by something quieter. "Enemy retreat confirmed," Hale said. Rourke exhaled slowly. "Stand down, active engagement. Maintain watch." Around him, the crew moved with subdued efficiency. No cheers, no celebration. Just the steady rhythm of people who understood the cost. The young officer spoke again, softer now. "We actually did it." Rourke glanced at him. "We survived it." A transmission channel opened, directed outward, beyond the expanse, toward the Council. Rourke recorded the message himself. "This is Admiral Elias Rourke of the Terran Vanguard. You sent a fleet to contain us. You misjudged what that means. We don't expand to dominate, we expand to endure. Remember that before you try again." The signal transmitted, clean and unaltered. Far from the expanse, Vakal reviewed the final data in silence. The outcome was clear, but the lesson ran deeper than loss. Humans didn't break structure, they reshaped it mid-conflict. And that made them dangerous in ways the Council had never prepared for. He closed the report. This time, there would be no assumptions. Only respect.